Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Make Life Less Taxing podcast, the show where we uncover what really creates freedom in life and business, and we'll explore stories of those who've learned how to build wealth with purpose.
Welcome back to the Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Today, I'm joined by James Miller, founder of Baobab Wealth Management and firm with a mission to help globally minded retirees diffuse the tax time bombs and in retirement with clarity, not confusion. James is also the author of Divorce the IRS. James, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
James, can you share with us a little bit more about who you are and what you're working on right now?
Sure. I go by Jimmy. James sounds more official on the business card, but I like to go by Jimmy. I run a boutique financial planning RIA, registered in the state of Florida. I specialize in U.S. expats, really, in cross-border families. Been doing it since the year 2000, so 25 years now. I'm an independent fiduciary, just hang my shingle out. My wife is German, that's the cross-border specialty. She helps me out. We have a full-time assistant. The practice as it sits today is about 100 households, 65 million under management. I use Schwab as my main custodian because they do a great job for expats and cross-border stuff. And I really specialize in helping both those cross-border families and Americans looking to retire, work, adventure overseas, understand all the financial planning benefits and pitfalls of becoming an expat overseas. I'm also the author of Divorce the IRS, now in its second edition, which is an Amazon best-selling book. To sum it up, really is about Roth conversions, but how to make a smart lifetime tax plan and not just plan how to save the most taxes in any single year, but how to save the most taxes over the course of your lifetime.
Oh, that's great. Sounds like a really exciting practice that you have, especially with the international flair. Now, what was it that led you first into this world of finance and advising?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I've been an expat most of my life. I've spent more time outside the United States than I have inside the United States in my lifetime, but I'm American. Both my parents are American. My parents love to travel. My dad set up sewing factories and made clothing all around the world. So I was born in Zambia. We lived in the Philippines, in Australia, in Hong Kong, in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, lots of different places around the world. So I really got that travel bug as a youngster. As an adult, I've kept that going, traveling around the world. And since I've lived the expat lifestyle myself and I understand what it takes and the pitfalls that come with it, I thought that would be a really good niche to use in my financial planning practice to help other expats out as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, when you can go and kind of line up your passion with your work, you really don't go to work, right? You're just kind of living your life and enjoying it. So that's really great. So if you had to sum up your mission in one sentence, what would that be?
Helping cross-border families and expats, live the life that they want to the fullest without worrying that they're missing something when they want to travel, live, adventure overseas. That's what I do.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about a little bit about your book. I mean, you've titled it, Divorce the IRS. That's a fairly bold statement. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely. It is. And a little backstory to that. Scribe was the publisher, and I actually didn't like that title when they first proposed it to me, but they did a lot of A/B testing and things like that. And it was definitely the most sticky title. And even though I find the word divorce to be quite negative, it's really been a great title for the book, and people remember because it's sticky and they associate the book with the title really well. So it's worked out quite well. I do a lot of public speaking around the book, especially with the first edition. I did several little book tours and book speaking. Riskalyze, now called Nitrogen Wealth, advisors would recognize. Hosted my book as the book giveaway for the 2023 annual conference in Salt Lake City. I was quite proud of that. It's done really well.
So when you're dealing, and I know that most of your clients are expats, but can we go a little bit deeper into it? Like, who are the clients that you're kind of working with? Is it just kind of right across all different industries, or is there specific things that you do, or is it just kind of like, hey, you know what, when they're expats, they're kind of my clients?
Yeah, so I have a couple different niches, I suppose. I definitely have clients that just live regular American lives here in America, and I got a lot of expat clients that have come back to retire in America or come back for various reasons. So I'm certainly qualified to help Americans with their financial planning as well. And many of them just are. The book generates a lot of leads from my practice. As people read it, people reach out. So I'm certainly qualified to help people just here in the States and Americans. But really, what I specialize is in people with 500,000 to $5 million. It's really my
Mm,
ballpark that need decumulation, retirement income planning, with a lifetime tax plan built into that. So that's kind of the sweet spot where I work. I don't really work with business owners. I know a lot of advisors like to say I work with
mm,
business owners. I don't enjoy working with business owners for different reasons, primarily because I find that they're very wrapped up in their business. Most business owners, in my experience, not all of them, but they have unrealistic expectations about what their business might sell for someday or be worth. And I just find it challenging. I mean, I understand as a business owner myself, the wanting to pump money back into your business and not into investments or other things like that. But I tend to stay away from business owners. I don't do retirement plans like 401ks or ERISA type stuff as well. I find that complicated and messy and a pain. So
mm.
those are some of the things that I tend to stay away from.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest financial challenges that your clients have when you start working with them?
Probably the big one, since I've really focused on retirement income planning, whether it's here in the States or if it's going to be cross border, is how to decumulate in a smart, tax efficient way and to compare taxes if they're a cross border type of client between their tax liabilities in the States and the tax liabilities in whatever country that they want to go to. Those are the biggest issues that I'm dealing with. Saving for retirement, as you know, is quite easy, especially with all the set it and forget it programs. People just put in their 401k and dollar cost average over 30 years or 40 years of saving. When you get to the decumulation phase, understanding how to do it correctly,
Mm,
reduce sequence of returns risk, make sure you don't run out of money, that your legacy issues are taken care of, and that you're not paying more, right? You can be patriotic, but even patriots I meet, they're happy to
mm,
pay their taxes, their fair share, but they don't want to leave a tip for the
mm.
IRS. And so I help with all those type of things.
Yeah, I think you bring a great point. I think often, as you mentioned, it's easier to save, right? And it's kind of often the analogies that's being used when somebody's climbing a mountain, there's more deaths on the way down than on the way up. And I think that's often when, unfortunately, retirement can really blow up into some, in somebody's life where, they're in that decumulation. Now, can you walk us through a moment when someone realized they were literally sitting on that tax time bomb and what was the wake up call for them, or what did that look like when you kind of just help them to see what actually is happening where they maybe thought that they were okay?
Yeah, there's lots of stories about that. I have 8 tax time bombs in the book. Everything from the potential of exploding tax rates, if we have higher taxes in the future, which is speculative, based on the deficit and other problems that we have here in America, to the widow's penalty, to triggering IRMAA surcharges, to paying taxes from the grave, for the people that inherit your money. So people come to me in all stages of accumulation and decumulation. Oftentimes, people come to me after one of these tax time bombs has exploded already in their life.
Mm,
They've made a tax inefficient purchase overseas if they're an expat client, or one spouse has passed away, and all of a sudden they have the widow's penalty and they're in the single tax brackets, and the income hasn't gone down that much, but their taxes have gone up a lot. Other people read the book and approach me because they're interested in the estate or legacy planning aspect of it and are more interested in the kids inheriting tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs instead of taxable accounts, since the kids will probably be in their highest tax bracket earning years of their life when they inherit the money. So people come at all different stages for all sorts of the different tax time bombs.
okay. Now, you've mentioned that most Americans fail to create or keep real wealth. Why do you think that is?
Oh, there's a myriad of reasons for that. That's a great question. For Americans overseas, retirement planning is harder than
Mm,
it is for Americans here in the States, right? If you're working overseas, it's unlikely that you are getting a 401k or something like that if you're working for a foreign company. And oftentimes, when you're putting into a social security system in another country, you don't work there as an expat long enough. In a lot of cases, expats go to some place for 3 or 5 years and they go to another country or they come back to the States. So they never get a benefit of putting into that social security system, because just like here in America, right, you have to put into the social security system for 40 quarters or 10 years of substantial earnings before you qualify for a benefit. It goes both ways, right? Expats here in the United States that only work for 5 or 8 years also put a lot of money into the social security system, would never get a
mm,
benefit back out of it. So Americans overseas generally have to save more than their American counterparts or friends in the States because of things like that. Now, there have been some legislative changes in this past couple of years that have helped, like the repeal of the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. That has certainly helped if Americans overseas, if they are going to get a pension from another country, not have it offset their Social Security in the United States. So that's made life a little bit easier in the last couple of years, but it's still more challenging for an American overseas to save as much for retirement or rely on systems like Social Security. There's just extra expenses that come with living overseas as well. A lot of the countries my clients are in, especially the European Union, the taxes are considerably higher than in the United States. Americans overseas also have to file U.S. taxes. We're the only one of two countries in the world that make the citizens overseas pay and file tax in the United States. Now, there are some countries that have tax treaties to eliminate some double taxation and issues like that. It gets a little bit complicated, but they're paying generally a lot more taxes overseas than they are in America, which also makes saving for retirement more difficult. There's also extra expenses for Americans overseas, right? If you live in your hometown in middle America, you're probably not traveling like an expat or want to see the sights and sounds like an expat. If you're going over to London for 3 years, you're probably also taking advantage of making all sorts of trips all over Europe while you live in London for 3 to 5 years to take advantage of that, and you should. But you need to calculate that kind of stuff into your financial plan that you might be spending two, three, four times more than if you were just living in your hometown in America and not doing that kind of travel to take advantage of that opportunity. So those little things creep up on expats and make saving for their future, for their goals, for their retirement much more difficult than just living here domestically in the United States.
So what I'm hearing you say that if you're an expat, planning is not optional. I mean, not that it ever is optional, but I think for expats, there's probably that another layer or more complexity, and they really need to, work with an, expert instead of trying to kind of figure things out on their own.
Absolutely. I always say, expats don't never plan to fail. They just fail to plan is what I see as one of the biggest pitfalls.
Yeah. So what's something that most advisors don't talk about that, you believe that clients absolutely need to hear, and it sounds like especially with if they do deal with an, expat.
So there's not a lot of advisors that are in this niche. It's a growing niche, but there's not a lot of us out there that really specialize in this, which has been obviously really good for me. But lifetime tax planning, to answer your question, a lot of advisors are not talking about lifetime tax planning. They're not looking holistically at what a person's tax liability is going to be over their whole life. The other thing that they're not talking about enough, in my opinion, is the full scope of Roth conversions. There's certainly plenty of advisors out there talking about Roth conversions, but rarely do I find them taking a holistic approach to Roth conversions. The simplicity of just saying, what tax bracket are you in today? What tax bracket are you going to be in retirement? That should determine whether we do a Roth conversion or not, is missing a lot of key parts in that analysis. So I think that's a big miss out there in our industry, and I wish more advisors were doing a more holistic approach to Roth conversions for people, looking at that lifetime tax plan, seeing if that Roth conversion is going to trigger IRMAA, figuring out what that surviving spouse is going to pay in taxes if she inherits pre-tax accounts versus Roth accounts, what the kids are going to pay when they inherit those pre-tax accounts versus those Roth accounts. There's just so many different aspects that you really need to consider in Roth conversions that I think are being missed in calculations out there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely important to go and having that, that planning. And as you mentioned that not a lot of advisors maybe even understand, the importance of that another layer with an expat. Now, what's most important to you when it comes to how you serve your clients?
Relationship, right? I tell everybody I'm really looking to build a long-term trusted relationship with people that like me and people that I like. That's why I'm a solo lifestyle practitioner, as Kitsis would put it. Um, that's what I'm looking for. I tend to work a lot more with optimists than pessimists. I find that it's hard to be a successful long-term investor if you have a more pessimistic outlook than an optimistic one. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you think about legacy, both personal and professional, what do you want your work to stand for? What do you really want people to remember you by?
That's a good question. I mean, right now my business is me. My wife and I have been talking about what's the next step for our business. I really like having a lifestyle practice and taking care of this 100 households, shepherding them through their financial life. I don't know yet. I just turned 50 years old. I'm not sure what the future for my firm is. I love what I do. I plan to do it still for quite some time to come. So that's a good question, and I don't know the answer. My son is 8, like most advisors we've talked about him taking over the business. I don't know that I want to work long enough in this business for him to get to a mature enough stage to really take it over or not, or what an exit strategy might look like for me. Personally, I just want to be loved by my clients and help those people. If they remember me for what I did for them, that's good enough for me. I'm not looking to build any kind of empire or legacy for my business beyond what I'm doing for the clients that I love and serve.
Yeah. Well, I think you have kind of carved out a great, niche when it comes down to in the financial industry, because often that's what advisors kind of struggle with, who you're going to go and work with. And I think work as well. And again, it kind of really fits into not only your lifestyle, but it sounds like your whole entire family lifestyle and kind of what you've been, what you've been doing in the past. So it's really a great way to go and do that. And yeah, we always like to think that our kids are going to go and take over our businesses that we go and build. But you know what? Again, they've got to have to kind of figure out their own own way and figure out what they want to be doing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, when you are essentially sitting down with a client, you know, is your process different compared to you think that somebody else is doing when you're going through it, or is the kind of the process similar maybe at the beginning? Can you kind of walk us through what it is that you do when you sit down with someone?
Yeah, I think my process is very similar to other financial advisors out there. Um, I maybe use a little bit more software and take into a few more things into account, but the basics of financial planning are still all there, right? So, like most advisors, I'm looking to help people build a lifetime income that they can outlive that rises at least as fast or better than the cost of all the things they have to buy every year, right? Inflation. In my case, we have to look at currencies in that as well and make sure that our investments are beating inflation in the currency that the person is spending in, whether that's euros, Australian dollars, Japanese yen. So there's a few extra layers that we have to consider in the financial planning process with me, for expats specifically. But besides that, it's still quite similar. I use Money Guide Pro for a Monte Carlo analysis financial plan, and I use Income Lab for a historical analysis and distribution planning software. And then I also use Nitrogen for investment type planning. I find that a lot of advisors don't use two different softwares. I like it for a couple reasons. As a financial planner yourself, you're aware of how easy it is to miss a decimal or manipulate a small number to make a not so great plan look really great. So by putting the stuff in two plans and making sure they're saying about the same thing is kind of like a quality control check for me as an advisor that I haven't misplaced or fat fingered that decimal point somewhere. And I think clients like to see two different ways to look at it, right? There's certainly people that gravitate to the statistical Monte Carlo type analysis. But there's other people that like to look at a historical analysis like Income Lab would provide, showing what it would look like if they retired on the first of the month every month going back 100 years, to feel confident in their projections and what we're looking at and things like that. So besides maybe using a little bit extra software and taking into the taxes and things cross-border, inflation in other currencies, I think my process is very similar to other people's.
Yeah. Well, you do bring a great point that it's almost like, hey, you're giving somebody a second opinion with one opinion because you're giving those two different options for them. And again, I think the best decision is the informed decisions when somebody makes, right? And I think the biggest thing and I appreciate you mentioning that, most people don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan. And I think that's kind of the unfortunate thing. But having those two options, I think gives you an extra edge and I think a peace of mind to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it does. And I
Mm,
tell all my clients, it's never my job to tell you what to do with your money, right?
mm,
Most people don't want to be told what to do. My job is to make sure they have all the answers they need so they can make the best decision for themselves and they're not going to get sideswiped by something that they missed, especially as an expat with all the different rules and laws and tax things, so that they can sleep well at night knowing that somebody's looking over their stuff and they're not going to have some big tax time bomb blow up on them. The other thing that I'd
mm,
mentioned is unfortunately, there's no great software for expat planning advisors like myself. Building a software for this niche market would be very difficult. I understand that, and all the constant changes in tax laws in America make it hard enough for those major players to keep their software up to date. Never mind trying to keep it up to date for the cross-border environment with all the different countries. So in the planning process, that is a challenge that we have. All advisors that would do what I do would have is making US based financial planning software work for that expat client across the border. But there's workarounds and ways to do it.
Yeah. No, again, that's as you mentioned, that's kind of the difficulty of dealing that, but you kind of have the tools to actually go and help somebody and do some of the planning. And again, often I know when I was doing financial plans for somebody, I always told them as soon as I delivered it, I'm going, listen, you need to understand it's already outdated. We're using numbers that are historical numbers. What's going to happen forward, really depends on you, what you choose to do. But at least now we have a data point that we can see, hey, we are following the plan as we start to look at these data points moving into the future. And it's really the planning process that's more important than the actual plan, because the plan, as soon as it's delivered, it's outdated.
Absolutely. It's got to be a living document for it to
Yeah.
work. Absolutely.
Exactly. Now, there's a phrase on your website, growing old is mandatory, doing it well is optional. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's exactly like what it sounds like. That applies to all of us, you and
Mhm.
me, right? Most all of us are going to grow old, but how well we do it, what we save, what our income's going to be, that's for most people, that's completely optional on what choices they make in life. Work with that planner, don't work with that planner, save more, don't save more. So I think it's just a catchy phrase that really makes people think about their future a little bit better and what it might be like to work with an advisor and the people that gravitate to a saying like that tend to be the type of people that I want to work with.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to it's all about choices, right? And in the whole thing, people say, "Well, I didn't do any of the planning." Well, you choose not to do planning, and I think this is the unfortunate thing. Was most people feel like when they're not making a decision, they're not. No, they just made a decision not to make a decision. It's still a decision, but unfortunately, a lot of people look at it going like, "Well, I didn't make a decision." No, you did. You chose not to, right? So it's a great way of putting that. Now, how do you see retirement planning evolving over the next, 5 to 10 years? I mean, with AI and everything that's happening, do you see any changes or things that are happening?
Sure. I mean, it's a changing industry like any big industry, and it's definitely changing. I'm using AI myself in my practice. I use Jump AI as my note taker. That's saving me tremendous time in making detailed notes after each client meeting. And so I really enjoy that. I use the paid version of ChatGPT to do research. As you can imagine, getting into tax documents in
Mm.
Germany or the UK or things like that, it can be quite tedious, and ChatGPT has made finding those answers, especially cross-border, much more efficient for me in my practice. So I appreciate using those types of tools. So that's going to continue to change the industry for sure. Do I think that it's going to put us all out of business? Absolutely not. Right? The robo was also going to put us all out of business, and that didn't happen. Pre-compression was going to put us all out of business, and I haven't seen that happen either. I don't think this is either. I don't think when the market's down, 40%, that somebody's going to feel real comfortable just chatting with an AI bot on their computer, and it's going to hold their hand the way it's going to need to stop them from making that mistake to liquidate at the bottom, or any of the other myriad of financial mistakes that people make when they don't have a trusted advisor that's helping them through those tough times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you bring a great point. It's a relationship business. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Absolutely. I think AI is going to make it so that in the future, somebody like me might be able to help 200 families instead of 100
Yeah.
families, which I think is great. So I only see potential and really great things coming from technology in our industry. But I think it's always going to be a personal relationship type of industry in the end. And one thing that I've made a change, I see a lot of the industry, especially with younger people, trying to go these fee only models that aren't AUM or planning fees. I think that's great that they're trying different things. I see limited success out there with people that are trying it. I've tried it to a degree myself, and I don't like it. I think that will also change in our industry going forward. I generally try not to do one-off financial plans for people. I certainly get people that are do-it-yourselfers that have hit that retirement stage or they're going to go overseas and they're not interested in working with an advisor long term. They just want a professional like me to look over everything they're doing, give them the thumbs up, give them some ideas and things like that. And I've done that in the past, but with very limited success. And so I'm really not doing that anymore. And it's like, I tell people it's like going to the gym to hire a coach to make a plan for losing weight or getting in shape, right? And they write down on a piece of paper that you need to do 50 sit-ups and 50 push-ups, and they hand you that piece of paper. Are you likely going to go do those 50 push-ups and 50 sit-ups just because you were handed a piece of paper that says you need to do that? Probably not. And I find the same thing in the financial industry. I can build a really great financial plan for somebody and say, this is how you need to reallocate your portfolio and these are the things you need to do, and you should do Roth conversions and all this type of stuff. And I hand it to them, and a year later they call me up and they haven't done any of it because they're busy people that live in their lives and they don't have time and or expertise, or they got hung up on trying to enact something that I recommended, and that doesn't do people any good. And I wonder how many plans are being delivered for a one-off fee only type of thing out there that are never getting implemented,
Yeah.
or they do get implemented, but then when the markets turn south or things change, they still end up blowing themselves up. So the plan didn't really help them in the end anyway. So that's the kind of a divergence I see in the industry right now that I'm curious as to where it might lead or go, and how helpful that really is for people.
Yeah. No, you bring a great points. I mean, it comes down to a plan is no good if it's not implemented. I mean, if there is no implementation, what was the point of going through the whole exercise? And also, we have the same view when it comes down to, it's not that AI is going to go and replace advisors, but you may be replaced by an advisor that's using AI because they're more efficient. So it's a tool to actually enhance what you're already doing, not necessarily to go and replace you or someone there. Because even right now, like, there was a lot of people that, thought when Kindle came out, well, the book publishing is gone. No, it's not. People still like to go and hold a book in their hand and read it, right? So again, it's not for everybody, but everybody kind of finds their own way, what they want and, how they want to go and, operate or how they want to go and get their advice. What's something that you're building or creating or dreaming about right now in your practice that you want to go and start that's getting, that makes you excited?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure how to answer that. I love my practice. I love my clients. I love where I'm at. I think the thing that pops to the top of my head for that question would be content.
Mm,
Like you were doing this podcast to try to bring value back and create content. I mean, I already have a YouTube channel. I put a lot of blog posts out. I have the book, guides, lots of relevant information out there. And I help a lot of people that don't hire me as a financial advisor. And I feel really great about that. I come from a theory of abundance. I think there's enough clients out there for all of us. We all can
mm,
build our little tribe. I don't come from a theory of scarcity. When I get on a first call with somebody, I'm sharing all my ideas with them right away. I offer financial planning up front for those that qualify for free, no cost, no obligation. That way they don't have to make a decision in one call whether they want to work with me or not. They can see the value of going through the planning process of doing a plan, the recommendations and all that before they have to make that decision. And also so I can get to know them before I make that decision. And oftentimes people will do that and then they won't hire me. And that's okay with me because they might
mm,
refer somebody else to me, right? Those people are in my circles and it all works out. I don't have the capacity to help everybody out there uh, directly, right? So I have a great practice, and those that want to work with me, great. Those that don't want to work with me, great. I've helped out another American citizen overseas. But I'm excited about building more content going forward. It takes a lot of work to create the content and be innovative, but I'm looking forward to really expanding my YouTube channel with more relevant content, maybe writing another book. So those of people out there that maybe don't hire me directly as an advisor can still benefit from my expertise and learn something. There's plenty of people out there that are just looking for an answer that I might be able to provide through resources. And I also feel good about that. I get a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn that have read my book, especially in the FIRE movement, Financial Independence, Retire Early. My book has become quite popular in the
mm.
FIRE movement. In the second edition, I wrote a whole chapter about the FIRE movement and Divorce the IRS. And they reach out just to tell me, hey, I read your book and I loved it and it changed my whole thinking, lifetime tax planning, how I'm going to do my Roth conversions and it's heartfelt, and it makes me feel great that somebody got my book and read it, and it changed their ideas about their FIRE movement and how to do stuff, and that they're going to get value out of it, even though they're not hiring me as a financial advisor.
Yeah, I think you bring out a great point, and often when I talk to advisors, I tell them, hey, your job is to figure out, there's 2 days that are most important in your life, the day you were born and the day you realized why. And your job is to figure out exactly why you were born and kind of what your purpose is, and then go and live it out. And I think you're bringing out a great point. It's not about you going out there and trying to figure out who can I go and sell or who can go and become my client. You go and share your information. If it resonates with them, right, then you both, kind of choose each other to go and work together. And that's really what it comes down to. You're there just to help them to make the next best decision, not necessarily to go and sell something to them. And that really creates that relationship business. And I do agree with you. I'm the same way. There is no competition. There's more than enough people, and there are people I know that don't like me for whatever reason, and there are people that are going to love me, right? The same way, kind of with you, what you just mentioned, right? There are some people that you show them what you do, how you do it, you help them in a certain way, and they may not choose to work with you. Completely fine, because there are other people, there are more people that are out there, as long as you're going out there and giving the value to them. So if someone's listening today and is realizing that they may have a tax landmine buried inside of their portfolio, or what they have done, what would be the first step that they should take?
Read the book. I mean, read the book. That'll help them understand what tax time bombs might be out there for them in their lives. The book has several case studies outlining different people at different stages of their life. So the idea was that people would, gravitate towards one of those case studies that's most like them, and understand what they can do to diffuse those tax time bombs, and make smart choices, whether they hire me or any other advisor or not. That would be a good first step. It's a quick, easy read. Is about, the second edition is 250 pages. It takes most people 3 or 4 hours to get through it. One of the feedback that I get from a lot of people is that, for a tax book, it's fun to read. It's not complicated. I mean, I get it. Who wants to sit around and read a book about taxes and time bombs? But it really, it helps. I tell people all the time, like, if you take 4 hours and read this book, it might be the most productive or the highest paid 4 hours of your life. If you implement the stuff that you learn in those 4 hours, it could be a real game changer for you, for your spouse, for your kids, for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's really where transformation happens, right? So it's like, as you mentioned, read the book, you need to have a plan, and then implementing the plan. That's really what's going to go and make the transformation, kind of like you said in the book. If there are some ideas in there that can go and help somebody, it's the implementation of that they need to do. So listen, as we're coming down to close of the show, there's 4 questions that I always ask, rapid question. I'm almost thinking, I'm not sure if I should ask this first question, but hey, what is the favorite book that that you have read or that has shaped your thinking that you would go and recommend? And obviously, you don't want to recommend your book, but is there another book that you might be thinking about?
Sure, there's lots of good books out there. I'm a Nick Murray zealot for sure. And Nick Murray, he's really an advisor to advisors in our industry. And most of the books he writes are for advisors and how they should develop their practice and work with clients. But he's written a book for clients, and advisors use it to give away to people. It's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. And it's a fun book to read. It's also a very quite simple, quick read that really explains how to work with an advisor effectively to grow multi-generational wealth. And I think that's a great starting place for a lot of people out there, would be a book like Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring a great point. I think often there is a lot of people don't have a lot of knowledge around finances and all of that stuff. I'm not talking about getting detailed stuff or a little bit more advanced, but even basic, financial kind of education, because really the only education that most people get is maybe from their parents or from TV or from news. And often that is not the most accurate or the best information they have. So if somebody can go and invest in reading a book that's going to help them to get some financial literacy, it's really a great way of learning and growing.
Absolutely. So yeah, I can wholeheartedly recommend that book.
Yeah, that's great. Morning routine or habit that you can't live without?
Oh, Uh, I love what I do. I get up in the morning before I really do anything. I go fire up my computer to see what clients have emailed me, who I get to talk with today. So I don't have a specific routine in the morning that I can't really live without, but I'm excited to get up every day and see which one of my great clients I get to talk to today. and email back and work on their financial plans. That's what I do first thing every morning.
No, that's great. What's one bucket list item that you haven't done yet?
Personally or professionally?
Either. It's up to you.
So I'm an outdoors type of person. I met my wife climbing Kilimanjaro in Africa.
Mm,
We climbed Elbrus together in Russia. So we've knocked off two of the what's called the seven summits, the highest peak on each of the seven continents. I think it would be fun to climb. I don't think I'll climb all seven or ever get as high as like Mount Everest, but I think it would be fun to still climb another one of the seven. The only continent I haven't been to is Antarctica.
mm.
The peak there is Vincent Massive. That's the one of the seven summits and the highest peak on that continent. So I think combining getting to the last continent on Earth and maybe also doing a third seven summit would be an ambitious personal goal that I'd like to do.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like fun, but it's a lot of hard work also. So, what's a surprising hobby or interest that recharges you?
Generally, anything that's outdoorsy.
Mm,
I love outdoor stuff. So I have a lot of clients in Alaska. I went up to Alaska this summer with my family to visit with my clients and do salmon fishing and teaching my kid who's 8 now to catch his own salmon in the
mm.
streams up there was really inspiring. He loved it. Really getting out to nature is what inspires me and recharges me and what I like to do when I'm not helping people with financial plans.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, reconnecting kind of with nature and doing all that stuff. And again, with all of your rich history of traveling and all of that stuff, I'm not surprised by what you're, where you're at and what you're doing. Now, this is the last question. I call it the hot one. Let's fast forward to the end of your life and imagine that everyone forgot everything that you have ever taught them or showed them. But they will remember one last message from you. What would you want that message to be?
Be kind and gentle. That's what I've been trying to teach my son, that in life you should be thoughtful, kind, and gentle to other people and understanding. I mean,
Yeah.
those are many things there, but if you could wrap all those things up into one deliverance at the end of my life, if nobody uh, remembered anything else I ever did, and I could depart one last thing, I mean, thinking about my son specifically or anybody, it would be that.
Hmm. Oh, it's a great message. The world and life would be a lot nicer, simpler, and a little bit easier for everybody if we all behave a little bit more like that. And remember that when we're talking to somebody else. That's really great. Wow, what a powerful and perspective shifting conversation, Jimmy. Thank you for sharing your journey. Where can people find out more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website out there. You can probably put it up on your podcast. It's Baobab Wealth. Baobab is the tree of life. A lot of people ask me, what is Baobab or how
Mm,
you pronounce that? So Baobab is the tree in Africa. Since I was born in Zambia, I really love the Baobab tree. Most people know it as the tree of life from the Lion King. It's one of the oldest living and strongest trees on Earth. So it's a good solid, logo for my company. And I often tell people that investing is a lot like planting a tree. That's why I use the tree as my logo. If you plant the seeds and then you just leave it alone, it will grow into something wonderful over time.
mm.
Same as an investment. So little history there. So baobabwealth.com and Baobab Wealth Abroad for those US expats. So I have two websites, Baobab Wealth and Baobab Wealth
Okay.
Abroad.
Yeah, you bring a great point on what comes to me when you start talking about trees. There's the question, right? When is the best time to go and plant a tree? Well, the best time was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And I think this is very appropriate for your planning, right? You know what? You
Absolutely.
can't go backwards and start planning from 20 years ago, but you can start today and doing that. So, no, that's perfect. So if you're listening, be sure to check out Jimmy's website and the tools that he's created to really help you to design, meaningful retirement. Jimmy, thank you again for your time and your message. And remember, making life less taxing isn't just about money. It's about freedom, clarity, and purpose. Keep building wealth, keep protecting your legacy, and keep living the untaxable lifestyle. We'll see you next time on the Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Be sure to check out our other top advisor interviews at makelifilesstaxingpodcast.com.